Your body isn't tired, your soul is bored, and no amount of sleep will ever solve that. You could rest for 10 hours, eat clean, take vitamins, do everything the world says will give you energy, and still feel like a dim light bulb in a room with no switch. Still wake up with a silent ache behind your ribs, like something sacred has gone missing, and no one else seems to notice. Because this exhaustion isn't physical, it's existential, it's not your schedule, it's your spirit. We've confused performance with purpose, numbness with normal, distraction with direction. Most people don't even realize they're running on empty because they've never experienced what it feels like to be truly lit from within. The world has trained you to look fine, to be productive, polite, useful. But inside, there's a growing sense of emotional fatigue, not from doing too much, but from doing the wrong things for too long. You're not lazy, you're not broken, you're misaligned. Brendon Burchard calls this the caged life, not dramatic suffering, just quiet suffocation. You're not failing, you're functioning, but something in you knows this isn't it. And Carl Jung knew exactly what to call that feeling. He wrote, "The sole purpose of human existence is to kindle a light in the darkness of mere being." You weren't born to coast, you weren't built to be efficient. You were meant to ignite, to burn with something true. But what happens when that light dims? Most people panic. They chase more stimulation, more scrolling, more deadlines, more goals. But that only makes it worse, because you can't fix spiritual depletion with surface-level activity. Studies now show that even after extended rest, nearly 60% of adults report persistent fatigue, not from lack of sleep, but from lack of meaning. Their minds are overloaded, their emotions undernourished, and their souls unspoken. If that's you, pause for a moment, feel your own pulse, not just on your wrist, but in your life. When was the last time you felt fully here? Fully present in your own story, not acting, not achieving, but alive. When was the last time you said, "This moment matters," and meant it? Because if you can't remember, that's not just burnout, that's a warning. The power line between who you are and how you live has been cut, and no external success can compensate for that internal outage. So before we talk about how to live fully charged, we have to confront the truth. You've been dimming for a while, but that doesn't mean the fire is gone. It means it's waiting. And when you stop performing, stop posturing, stop racing to nowhere, and finally sit with the silence, you'll hear it humming beneath the noise. It's not telling you to do more, it's telling you to come back to the part of you that remembers what real energy feels like, to the place where your soul stopped speaking, to the moment you decided that fitting in was safer than burning bright. That's where we begin, because the flicker you feel right now, that's not failure, that's your invitation. There is a voltage inside you still. It doesn't come from adrenaline or dopamine. It's deeper, quieter, older than memory. It's the hum that begins when you stop pretending. The current that surges when you do something real, say the thing you feared. Rest when you should be grinding. Create something no one asked for. It's your soul's signature frequency, and it's still alive beneath the debris. Carl Jung didn't believe energy was something we chased. He believed it was something we unlocked. He spoke of libido not in the narrow sense, but as psychic energy, the raw life force that fuels everything meaningful inside us. He said that when your life reflects your truth, energy flows. But when you betray that truth, when you silence your desires, suppress your emotions, or edit yourself into something acceptable, you begin to leak. Every unspoken truth costs you voltage. Every false smile drains your reserves. Every performance, every role, every mask siphons off the electricity you were born to carry. And the longer it goes on, the more you forget that energy was ever yours to begin with. But it was, and it is. There's an ancient story from the Ramayana that holds this truth. A divine warrior named Hanuman stood at the edge of the ocean, frozen. He'd been told to leap across it to rescue someone in need. But he hesitated. Not because the leap was too far, but because he'd forgotten his power, forgotten who he was. Then someone reminded him, "You were born for this." And in that moment of remembering, not achieving, not planning, his strength returned. He grew, he soared. Not because he became something new, but because he reclaimed something ancient. That's what reclaiming energy looks like, not chasing hype, remembering essence. Jung called this individuation, the process of becoming who you truly are. Not better, not bigger, just you. And he said the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But here's the paradox. You don't become yourself by adding. You become yourself by subtracting. Subtracting the roles, the noise, the fear of being misunderstood. Subtracting The version of you that made everyone else comfortable but left you hollow. This isn't spiritual fluff, it's psychological truth, because under every case of chronic fatigue is usually one thing: a life out of sync with what actually matters. You can eat clean, meditate, stretch, journal. But if you are performing a life that doesn't reflect your soul, you will feel tired. All the time. Because it's exhausting to betray your own design. And yet there's good news. Energy returns the moment you return to truth, not when things get easier. Not when everything is fixed, but when you stop outsourcing your worth, when you stop waiting for permission to feel alive. Even a tiny act of honesty can flip the switch. Saying no without guilt, saying yes without a plan, naming your desire without dressing it up as a joke, letting yourself rest, letting yourself want, letting yourself be seen. That's how the current returns, not with lightning, with remembering. If something in you just stirred, name it, drop it in the comments, say it out loud, because the moment you speak your truth, you become the source. You don't wait for energy, you build it, but most people never do, because they've been taught to wait. Wait for clarity, wait for motivation, wait for someone else to go first. But energy doesn't arrive like mail. It rises when your life and your truth finally stop fighting each other. Brendon Burchard once said, "The power plant doesn't have energy, it generates energy," but he never said it generates energy by pushing harder. It does it by aligning systems, by making everything flow in one direction. Carl Jung had a different word for that: individuation, not a task, not a brand, a return to self, to wholeness, because when the psyche moves in harmony, when your outer life begins to reflect your inner truth, you don't just feel better. You come alive. You don't need louder motivation. You need quieter congruence, because pretending is exhausting. Performing what's expected drains you in ways sleep never heals. Saying yes when your soul screams no costs more than time. It costs you access to your own current. And here's the paradox. Most people feel tired not because they're overworked, but because they're underexpressed. You weren't designed for camouflage, you were designed to radiate. Let me tell you a story. A man I met once had it all, by the world standards: six-figure job, apartment with floor-to-ceiling views, a partner who looked good on paper. And yet, every morning he sat at the edge of his bed, staring into nothing, whispering the same phrase, "I don't want this life." He didn't have a plan, but one afternoon, walking back from another meeting, where he said all the right things and felt absolutely nothing, he turned left instead of right, took a walk, found a bookstore, sat down with a journal, and wrote a single sentence: "I'm tired of being a version of myself I don't recognize." That sentence became a decision, and that decision gave him back more energy than sleep ever had. Because clarity doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers from a place so deep you have to go still to hear it. Fire doesn't start in a rush, it starts in a pause. The match is lit the moment you choose truth over ease. Say the hard thing, make the strange move, pick up the brush, the book, the instrument, the plan you buried under realism. Call the person who makes you feel seen. Leave the thing that empties you. These aren't radical actions, they're aligned ones, and aligned action is what generates real energy, not just momentum, but meaning, not just movement, but electricity. Your nervous system knows the difference. Fake energy is tense, brittle, and draining. Real energy is deep, calm, and magnetic. Feel it right now. Take a breath. Is it tight? Is your body bracing for something you don't want to do today? That's your circuit shorting itself out in real time. And it's not weakness. It's a signal. Your life isn't meant to be efficient. It's meant to be electric. So ask yourself, what's one thing you're doing that's taking more energy to maintain than it would to release? And what would happen if today you let it go? If something stirred while you listened, say it. Name it. Drop it in the comments. Because the first thing to come back when you speak the truth isn't clarity, it's energy. They tell you that if you want more energy, you need more habits, more routines, more output. But sometimes the reason you're tired isn't because you haven't done enough, it's because you've held too much for too long. The weight of unspoken pain, the pressure to be strong, the exhaustion of pretending you're fine when you're unraveling. This kind of tiredness doesn't show up in your calendar, it shows up in your soul. Carl Jung called this the shadow, the place inside you where all the parts you've exiled live. Grief you haven't felt, rage you've rationalized, desires you've shamed. And the truth is, the more you suppress, the more energy it takes to maintain the suppression. You are paying for your silence with your life force. Jung said, the gold is in the shadow. And what he meant was this: the vitality you're chasing might be hiding inside the parts of yourself you were taught to fear. You want to feel alive again? Stop bypassing the hard emotions. Stop decorating your numbness with positivity. Stop calling your burnout a phase. What if the collapse you're in isn't a failure, but an initiation? The myth of the phoenix doesn't begin with a spark. It begins with a fire that consumes everything false. And here's the paradox. You become more alive the moment you allow part of your identity to die. Not the self, the mask, not your essence, the expectations. The truth is, real energy comes not just from expression, but from release. A man I once worked with had built a reputation on resilience. He was the one people leaned on, the one who never cried. Until one day, during a session, he finally admitted, I'm exhausted from being everyone else's strength. That single sentence broke something open. He wept for the first time in a decade, and when he stood up, he didn't look drained. He looked taller, lighter, real, because what left him wasn't his strength. It was the burden of not being allowed to fall. You don't get your energy back by holding it together. You get it back by letting yourself unravel, safely, honestly, fully. Nassim Taleb said, wind extinguishes a candle and energizes fire. Be the fire and wish for the wind. So if you're in the storm, don't fight it. Let it blow away what you've outgrown. Let it test what's real. Let it reveal what remains when everything performative burns away. This isn't the end of your energy. This is the clearing of the static that's been blocking it. Stillness is not weakness. Sadness is not regression. Your grief is not a distraction from your purpose. Sometimes the fastest way back to your power is to let yourself finally fall apart. And when you do, you'll find something glowing in the wreckage, a spark that didn't die, a current that never stopped humming, a voice inside you that's been whispering the same thing all along. This too is energy. There's a moment after the storm when the air feels different, not calmer, clearer, as if the world finally stopped shouting long enough for you to hear your own breath again. That's what happens when you stop running. When you stop fighting to hold together a version of yourself that's been draining you for years. When you stop worshipping the image and start returning to the source. Carl Jung believed that when the psyche aligns with the self, when your conscious mind stops resisting your inner truth, psychic energy flows back into you, not in a flash, but as a steady return. It starts with relief, then stillness, then, strangely, strength. This is the part most people don't talk about, the part after the breakdown, after the unraveling, where you don't feel euphoric, you feel real. You don't move like you used to, you're quieter, but more grounded. Your boundaries are firmer, but your presence is softer. You no longer explode outward to prove your worth. You simply take up space. That's what coherence feels like. Not charisma, not hype, but everything in you moving in the same direction. You're no longer negotiating with your values, you're living them, and from that place energy flows. Not forced, freely, because the war is over. You've stopped fighting yourself. That's the real secret. Vitality isn't about more doing, it's about less division. When who you are, what you believe, and how you live are no longer in conflict, your nervous system begins to relax. Your breath deepens, your presence sharpens. People notice, not because you're louder, but because you're finally resonating with something ancient and true. You've stopped leaking energy through the cracks of self-betrayal. Now it flows through intention, and you begin to act, not from obligation, not from fear, not from the desperate hunger to be seen, but from clarity, from necessity, from love, from a power that doesn't need performance to be real. Let me give you an example. A woman I once coached had spent 20 years pleasing people, never raised her voice, always smiled. She was liked by everyone, respected even. But she was disappearing, every day a little more. Until one day she said something simple. I've spent my whole life being the version of myself that won't make anyone uncomfortable. That sentence didn't fix her life, but it gave her energy, because it was hers, unfiltered, honest, undeniable. And in the weeks that followed, she didn't burn her life down. She made one aligned decision after another. She left one meeting early, took one weekend off, told one person the truth, and that was enough. Because that's how energy returns, through coherence, through truth practiced gently, daily, consistently. So if you're waiting for a grand awakening, stop. Start instead with a moment of congruence. One thing that reflects who you really are, and then another, until the life around you begins to reflect the current within you. Because when your actions, your values, and your voice start flowing in the same direction, you don't just feel powerful, you feel free. You began this journey flickering, not broken, just dimmed, just quietly asking yourself in moments of stillness, where did my energy go? Now you know. It was never gone, it was just buried. Beneath performance, beneath pressure, beneath the belief that being everything for everyone was more valuable than being anything true. But something happened in the dark. You remembered not how to hustle, not how to climb, but how to feel, how to stand still and sense the current that never left you. Carl Jung said, "Who looks outside, dreams, who looks inside, awakes." You've done that now. You've looked in, faced the flicker, and something in you woke up. Not a new version, a real one. The truth is, living fully charged isn't about intensity, it's about integrity. It's not about being lit up all the time. It's about knowing what dims you and choosing again and again to stay close to your source. And now, it's time to carry that source forward into your relationships, into your creativity, into your boundaries, into your voice. Let it radiate quietly, fiercely, without needing to explain itself. You don't need to be louder, you need to be aligned. You don't need to win people over. You need to be unchangeably honest about what brings you alive, because this is what a fully charged life looks like. Not performing energy, but embodying clarity, not pretending strength, but standing in truth even when it shakes. And if there's one thing you take from this, let it be this: you are not powerless, you are not too late, you are not lost. You are an unlit fire. You are a current waiting for its connection. You are a voice ready to stop whispering, so plug back in to what you love, to what you've denied, to what you've been waiting to reclaim. And when you do, something begins to happen. The air around you shifts. People lean in, not because you're trying harder, but because you're finally transmitting the energy of someone who remembers who they are. And that energy, that coherence, that truth, it's contagious. If something's stirred in you, speak it. Don't wait, don't second guess. Say it aloud, drop it in the comments. Share this with someone who forgot their fire. Because when one person wakes up, others do too. And maybe, just maybe, your light is the one they've been hoping to see. So don't go back to sleep. Flip the switch, reconnect the current, live the life only your soul can power. Live it fully charged.